being recorded and published online after the meeting. To all attendees, please leave their camera on, but switch off their microphone when not speaking. But switch on both camera and microphone when you are invited to speak so that this is picked up on the recording. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function or indicate in the meeting chat and I will alert the chair. In the event of a fire, please follow the fire exit signs and continue to stairwell 1, which is behind me, and downstairs to fire exit A on the ground floor, and the fire assembly point is located in Regent Street, multi-storey car park, right-hand side on the ground floor. I will now do a roll call and would ask that members confirm their attendance when their name is called, so that this is clear in the recording and can also be recorded in the minute. Councillor Cook, Chair.
Present.
Vice Chair. Professor Batty.
Hi, I'm here, present, thanks.
Councillor Bunsell. Present. June Brown. Mark Burrell.
Present.
Councillor Radcliffe, Councillor Allard.
Present.
Councillor Gregg.
Present.
Jim Curry.
Present.
Jamie Donaldson.
Present.
Jenny Gibb.
Yes, good morning, I'm here.
Christine Hemming. Stephen Close. Maggie Hepburn.
Present.
Caroline Howarth. Present. Shona McFarlane.
Present.
Bill Mackey. Fiona Mitchell-Hill.
Present.
Paul Mitchell.
Present.
James Simpson.
Present.
We have apologies from Councillor Allard. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, as I say, we've got a fairly busy agenda today, and as per usual, we'll be taking breaks after 90 minutes. I rather suspect we'll probably need a break after 90 minutes, given the length of the agenda. But we'll be doing that. Just like to welcome Debbie, Kenneth, and Amanda, who are potential patient public representatives who are here just having a look at how we operate and how it all works. So welcome to them. I hope we don't put them off from potentially joining us as reps. I think that's probably about it to say at this point, in which case I will move on to the agenda proper. So item 2.1 is to ask if anyone's got any declarations of interest or transparency statements. Not seeing any hands. No. Okay, good, great. That brings us on to item 3.1, which is the determination of exempt business. We do have a couple of exempt appendices today. They are 9.1 and 9.2. One is on the 9.1 is on the supplementary work plan, and 9.2 is on the Morse contract. So are we happy to take these in private?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That brings us on to the video presentation, which this time is going to be on the technology-enabled care library. It's a fairly short presentation. We've had this one kind of on the stocks for a bit ever since Luann, Rujan and I visited the tech offices down by the harbour, and we thought tech was quite a good one because I think Fraser at the last meeting, possibly the one before that, made a very sensible point that in terms of reconfiguring our services, one of the things we're going to have to do is make more use of technology. So we just thought this might be a good time to take a look at this video. So I will now hand it over to Ros to play us the video.
This is the Tech Library. It has been created by Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership in collaboration with Specialist Resource Solutions, SRS. It offers adults residing in Aberdeen City, carers, and health and social care professionals the opportunity to experience and test a range of technology that can support independent living and help individuals maintain personal safety in a homely environment. On arrival, the CareTech coordinator will chat to you to establish your or your client's needs. The CareTech coordinator will explain what resources are available in the library and how these can help meet those needs. The benefits of using these resources can enable users to gain greater independence, tackle social isolation, increase confidence and safety. The coordinator will also explain what other community resources are available. Individuals can borrow products free of charge for up to 6 weeks to try them in a home setting. A borrowing agreement will be made with the CareTech coordinator. After the 6-week period, this will be reviewed and options for purchase and access to funding explored, depending on needs and equipment trial. The resource library is open to anyone living in Aberdeen City.
Okay, thanks for that. I think one of the good things about that is this idea that you can borrow something for a 6-week period and just give it a try, because quite often a lot of us, Ted as an old guy, can be a bit sort of nervous about taking on new tech, particularly if it's IT, and actually you worry about it. But if you can try it for 6 weeks and it works for you, that's great. If it doesn't work for you, you don't have to take it on. So that's good. Don't know whether anyone's got any other comments or questions on that one. Martin, and then you say.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really exciting to see the range of products there that are available to help people live independently as much as possible. And I imagine that there is an enormous market, huge variety of different interventions and products that have been designed. So I'm just wondering how the stock or the store is kept up to date with the most progressive, the best quality designs and the new innovations and so forth.
That's a good question. Actually, having said there are any questions, I'm not in a position to answer, but maybe we could take that offline.
I suppose it's a kind of a procurement or a supply question, because I think we would want to be as progressive as possible in that policy.
Is someone able to? Oh,
It's Claire, maybe. Claire Wilson.
Claire?
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. I was going to come in. So the tech library we're always looking and researching the most up to date tech, and we're also working with a range of providers as well, because we've got obviously the tech that North East Sensory Service have, because they've got quite a large library as well. So we're working in conjunction with them. So we're always looking for the most up to date, but it also has to be the most affordable for the person that is going to be obviously using it. But yes, we do keep it up to date, and we're always looking for new devices coming out, but trying not to have obviously too much that it's just so much choice. It has to be user friendly and as accessible as possible. Thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. You say?
Martin and I are clearly on the same wavelength, as I was going to raise that as well. But there's 2 points that I just thought would be worth just highlighting for folk is, firstly, the ability to self-refer, just walk in. I think that's really progressive, because very often there could be an assumption that you need to somehow be registered into something or be passported into something, and clearly that's not the case in this instance, which is great. So that's eliminating barrier to access. And I'm very pleased that we also mentioned in there about exploring funding opportunities. The device in front of me is a case in point. All these things are very expensive and beyond the means of some of our most vulnerable people. So I'm glad that we have those options available to be explored.
Ed, you want to come in on that again?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was just to say that yes, the self-referral is very good. We've done a lot of work to raise the knowledge of this. So we have there's a lot of events at the Carers Centre, and we've also been into the vaccination centre a number of times with our devices. So just trying to get the word out there that these devices, and obviously it's also discussed when that referral stage, so people and families know that library is there, but spending a lot of time in the vaccination centre and at the carer support just to try and make it as available and out there as possible.
Thanks, Claire. Anyone else want to comment or question? Oh, okay, in which case we can move on. That brings us to agenda item 4.2, which is the minute of the meeting. Oh, sorry, Shona.
Yeah, I just wondered, you said it's for Aberdeen City. Is there anything equivalent for Aberdeenshire?
Not that I'm aware of, although we are in discussion with Aberdeenshire about having kind of rolling it out across Grampian. So we are in discussion with them, as far as I'm aware.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Right, okay, then we'll move on to the minute of the meeting of the 6th of February. I'll just kind of go through this page by page, and if anyone's got any comments or whatever, just shout. So the first page is page 5 in the pack, page 6 in the back, page 7 in the back, page 8 in the back, page 9, page 10, page 11. So are we happy to approve that as an accurate minute?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That brings us on to the budget meeting held on the 26th of March. And again, I'll just go through this page by page. So the first page is page 13 in the back. And we have page 14 in the back. Page 15. 16. 17. And there we are. That then brings us on to item 4.4. Oh, sorry, yes. Can we approve that minute? Correct record. No, you're quite right to give me a dig when I forget stuff. Yeah, 4.4, which is the minute of the Risk Audit and Performance Committee held on the 2nd of April. Martin, is there anything you'd like to draw our attention to on this one? It's
No, it's hopefully going to be agreed as an accurate record.
in that case, can we agree with an accurate record?
Agreed.
Yep, thank you very much. That then brings us on to 4.5, which is the draft minute of the Clinical Care Governance Committee held on the 27th of February. And I think Mark was chairing this one. So anything you'd like to draw our attention to? Excellent. In which case, can we note the minute?
Noted.
Great, thank you. That then brings us on to the business planner, which is on page 27 of the pack. I think Fraser will field any questions on this one. Has anyone got any questions on it? Jennifer?
You know, I think it's item number 17, market position statement on accommodation. And I wondered, would it be useful to add to the housing, that housing accommodations? I know when I first read it, I thought it could be offered accommodation.
Yeah, I'll give that consideration. So it would be market position statement on housing accommodation is what you're asking us to consider. Yeah, I'll give that consideration, Jennifer. Thanks.
Anything else on the business planner? Not seeing any hands. Happy to note.
Good.
Thank you very much. That then brings us on to 4.7, which is the insights and topic-specific seminars planner, which I think is relatively straightforward, but does Alison wish to draw our attention to anything, or if anyone's got any questions, I'll pass it over to Alison. Martin?
Could I just ask, so 25th of June, there's that update on reducing prescribable spend, which I think is really important and very exciting. Just who would be involved there? Is that all of the IJB members and beyond? Because I think that is an important area of business.
I think on these seminars, it's basically open to everybody, whether you're a voting member, non-voting member, staff. So yeah,
Good.
I think basically our view on the seminars is the more the merrier.
It should be in everybody's diet.
Yeah. I mean, we recognise that not everybody can always make all of these seminars, because when you add the seminars into the schedule of committees and stuff, and everybody else's other bits of their day job, it can be quite time consuming, but the more people we get at these things, like the better.
Yeah, definitely.
And these ones are online, the topic specific seminars online, so that should be easier for folks to.
Good.
Jennifer, did you have a question?
Yes, please. I just wanted to ask about the prescribing. I was wondering what the scope of that seminar will be. For example, would it be prescribed by general practice, also perhaps by pharmacies? Would it be more widely than that? So I'm running that with the help of some friends. It'll be focused on the primary care budget, so what the hospital spend will be around general practice and any other prescribers that there are, which is far wider than just GPs. Our non-medical prescribers as well, plus pharmacy first, looking at our the counter type. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. If you've got anything you want to talk about specifically, just let me know.
Okay. Not seeing any more hands. And similarly, same kind of issue on the insight sessions. Any questions on that one? Nope. Okay. That brings us on to 4.0. Sorry. The insights and topics. Okay, we're happy to note it. Yeah.
Agreed.
Someone's going to keep kicking me to say, are we happy to note it on a constant basis? That brings on to 4.8, which is the Chief Officer's report. So any questions on this? Oh, Hussein, sorry.
Yeah, just a question on the, is it okay to ask a question on the rostering as part of the report? Yeah. You mentioned it's, thank you very much, first of all, for the report. It's very readable and concise as always. I just wondered if you could give an indication of the percentage of respondents in terms of the total workforce. It says that 54 people responded to the survey. What's that in terms of a number out of or a percentage, just to get some idea?
Julie, do you want to come in?
So.
Yep. Thanks for that. I'm not certain on the exact number of community nurses we have across the city, but I would imagine that's maybe quite a reasonable percentage. Fiona, you might have a better idea yourself as to what that percentage would be.
So
Just a
this,
ballpark figure of 10, 20.
so it would be, yeah, it would be about maybe 20% at the, and I guess Julie, just to explain, is our staffing changes picked up particularly sadly in community nurse, a lot of part-time staff, so we have a high head count. And this would have affected, although everybody's gone on to the rota, it will have impacted on more, some more than others.
It was more just to get an idea of sample size in terms of the feedback that we're getting, but that's helpful. Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Martin?
Yep, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a really excellent report. There's so much good positive things going on. Could I ask, I've got two questions, and one is on the staff wellbeing, which is section 6. Yeah, that's good to read. There's mention there of a kind of a break in the staff wellbeing programme, and I kind of assumed that there was an ongoing all year round annual programme of staff wellbeing activities. So just to give us kind of an indication or a flavour, you know, are there ongoing activities, and of what type? Because I think that's a really welcome way of supporting and encouraging staff who undoubtedly will from time to time have challenges.
So I would happily ask Sandy, but Sandy's had to go to a meeting to represent me, so Sandy's not here today. I don't know if anybody's got anything that they can show now. Are you aware of any of the breaks and you're around the wellbeing stuff?
I've got focused work recently at the daily huddles. We have a daily huddle meeting 3 times a week, and on a Monday I do a wellbeing topic for about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. As we've really been focusing on staff breaks since the conference as a topic, and really trying to encourage staff to make sure that they're not just taking their own breaks, but they're promoting their staff to be taking breaks, and not just the lunch breaks, but their morning breaks, their afternoon breaks, and just making sure that they're managing all the stress and work going on.
Right. So there's some method of just keeping on top of that, monitoring that staff are looking after themselves.
It's more just a problem to encourage.
Right.
Reminder.
I wonder that break at winter, it'll be because of the winter pressures, is that, but Shuna said, I think, after the back of the conference. So we have that break in winter just because of the pressures in the system.
Okay.
But yeah, it's always there in the background, but I guess that real focus work that we have been doing.
Okay. Thank you. And if I could please ask another question about the NHS conference on the 10th of June. So it's really good to see the participation there. Just wondering, I mean, I don't know how these events operate. Is that a forum for sharing good practice, finding out about what other areas are doing innovative practice, and so maybe they will learn from us. And I just wondered if there was some way for us to have some kind of very brief update, if aware that I don't know what to be adding to people's pressures of time and preparation and so forth. It does seem an important opportunity for gathering, and
yeah, happy, Martin, to come in there. So there's a number of opportunities for shared learning. There's poster displays. There's normally hundreds of posters there from across that we will have put in for some of them as well. Plus, obviously, there's the different sessions. So there's plenary sessions, and then there's there are lots of smaller sessions that you register for. So Sandy's definitely going to support our team who are speaking on the main stage from the Vaccination and Wellbeing Fund, Wellbeing Centre. So Sandy, I'm sure we can get a brief update to let you know some of the learning that comes out of that. It's now just a 1-day event. It always used to be a 2-day event, but it's now just a 1-day event. But we are definitely hoping to get some attendance from some of our colleagues.
Thank you very much. Potentially there will be some discussions about reducing prescribing spending. That might be useful for us. Just a thought. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think well done to our team for getting on the stage in the first place, and best wishes to them. Hope it goes well all the day. I just back to the issue of breaks. Those who weren't at the conference, Sandy Reid did a little exercise where he got everybody in the room to stand up. There must have been like 150 people there. He said, "Everybody stand up," and then he said, "Right. If you're taking all your breaks in the last week, you should have taken X number of hours. Can't remember what the number was. He said, right, if you've taken less than that, sit down. 95% of the room sat down. So it's really important that we do get folk taking the breaks, both for their own sake and for the sake of those they're looking after. As I always say, it's like you wouldn't want to fly if the pilot's tired. So you would want to use health and social care services if the staff are tired, is the way I always look at it. Cool. Anything else on the report, Jennifer?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question about item 19, the National Care Service. I was wondering if we could consider having regular updates on the work that the updated National Care Service Programme Board, and if we could also possibly consider a topic-specific seminar on the National Care Service.
Yeah, happy to do both there, John. So what I'll do in future updates and in this report is just provide a bit of detail around the discussion at that NCS Programme Board meeting. I'm going to have a look at dates as well for a seminar and insight session as well.
And I'm just pointing out that I've got a number of hands. So we've got Jennifer Gibb, Brandon Radley and Jamie Johnson. So Jennifer first.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to just pick up on the community nursing rostering paper again, please. And it was just really to say, in relation to the recommendations around item 4, which was supporting the implementation of the protected time for learning. I guess it's important to note that the agenda for change work that's going on with regards to the non-pay award is currently looking at that. So hopefully that should help with some of that. But then the other question I had was just around the recommendation 1, which was about reducing disparity between the staff with regards to the rostering. And I just wondered what system was being used and if something like, you know, an e-rostering system was used just to support team leads with parity of actually rostering shifts. Thanks.
Julie, do you want to come in or will I answer?
Yeah, so I know we are keen to try and get e-rostering in place across community, which I think will definitely help with that, Jenny, once we get that in place. And that will just be part of the wider rollout. But I guess in the meantime, we are trying to do work with the team to ensure that there is equality and equity across the rotas that we can for everybody involved, and that's ongoing.
Okay, Miranda.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on section 11, asylum seekers. We've had quite a few reports of sort of a fluidity in the asylum seeker population over the past few weeks, with some moving to England and some from England moving up to Aberdeen. It would be helpful to understand the impact that that's had on the health and social care sector, if that's possible.
Yeah, so Emma King here, hi, primary care lead. Can you clarify for me your question in terms of what were you thinking in terms of a wider impact? Were you thinking immediate impact of the dispersal on people moving out with of Aberdeen?
Yeah, so it was more around obviously people have then been in the country and moved to a different area that then we have to then reassess. Has that had an impact on assessment times? Have there been any additional pressures put on the system as a result of that?
Well, actually, no. It's been managed, and the HAT team have been managing it really well. We've seen a reduction in people moving. Lots of asylum seekers and refugees as well have been settled. We do have a delay specifically with asylum seekers rather than refugees. There is a longer stay in hotels for asylum seekers, but we do have a dedicated service for them still at the moment, and that remains. What we are doing with that dedicated service is reviewing it and transferring those clients at the moment onto mainstream practices to ensure that they're not receiving an unequitable service in any way, just due to their length of stay.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Okay, and then Jamie Donaldson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. It was just to go pick up on the staff well-being point that one of the big things that some of the when I speak to my NHS colleagues is we're still finding pockets of people that don't know about the mental health and well-being policy within NHS Grampian. So it's a big push on that, and also just to make folk aware of the workplace stress tool that the HSE have and the legal requirements about monitoring stress. So, I mean, we talk about well-being, and I was at that meeting with Sandy when they asked people to stand up. But what we also need together is people working from home, because often they will work through their breaks. They have the breaks at the desk. So it's really important that we're checking on these people as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. I think that's a good point. Okay, anyone else want to come in on this?
Thanks, Chair. I just first want to note quite a nicely prepared report. I find it quite readable, a lot of information. So I commend whoever wrote that. I think it's a very good one. Thanks, Fiona. And just on the Health and Care Staff in Scotland Act, I think that really does need to be picked up on the 25th. There's a lot of work on that. Certainly on the NHS side, we're seeing huge impacts on that. So I think this really will be worthwhile just focusing on that on the 25th. So, but thanks very much. Nice report.
Thanks. Okay. Not seeing any more hands. So can we note the detail contained within the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. That brings us on to 5.1, which is the Equality Outcomes and Mainstreaming Framework on integrated impact assessments, public engagement guidance. I think it's Stuart on this one. Yeah. Oh, we'll just do the musical chairs while Stuart moves away. Seen by the camera. Sorry.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. So today we are seeking IGB approval for the annual update in relation to our equality outcomes and mainstreaming framework. Also, our revised assessing impact of policies and practices, which contains our integrated impact assessment template within, and also our updated community engagement guidance. I'll hand over to Grace for the mainstreaming framework and to cover some of the key updates in relation to the community engagement guidance. But before I do, I wanted to draw your attention to Appendix B. Since the previous version of the assessing impact of policies and practice was approved in April last year, we've had 13 integrated impact assessments completed, and those have been published on our website. That work is overseen by the Diversity Officer network. And I wanted to highlight some of the key changes this year moving forward if we get approval today. So the key updates in relation to our integrated impact assessments are that Section 21 of the Consumer Scotland Act 2020, which places a duty on public bodies to have due regard to consumer interests when making decisions of a strategic nature. That's now included, and that duty already applies to the IGB. It came into effect on the 1st of April. The next one is the Armed Forces Act 2021, which has created the Armed Forces Covenant duty. This requires the IGB to have due regard to the particular needs of the Armed Forces community when making decisions. And finally, since the revised guidance was approved last year, there's been some specific situations that have required multiple IIAs. The medium-term financial framework would be one example. And these IIAs are to be considered as part of an overarching report. As such, our template's been updated to include a section on proportionality and relevance in that stage where staff can include relevant documentation or embed further documentation which supports the overarching report. Just to clarify, the Diversity Officer Network is a group of staff represented across the partnership who support colleagues in completing integrated impact assessments. We feed into the Equalities and Human Rights subgroup chaired by Alison McLeod and work closely with our ACC Council and NHS Grampian colleagues to ensure that we're aligned. Hence, our integrated impact assessment is very similar and looks very similar to that of the councils. That group is developing and we continue to monitor all integrated impact assessments. I'll now hand over to Grace.
So thank you, Stuart. And so I'm just going to give you a wee update on the Equalities Outcome Mainstream framework. Just to kind of note that we've obviously had significant progress over the last year. We've had 3 outcomes that have now been completed, and to say that all of our actions against our outcomes have started. So we're definitely on that equalities journey and will continue to be. Each of our outcomes are obviously embedded within our strategic and delivery plan. And it, we can see that throughout the report, the noted interest that the noted updates that's been throughout those relating to our delivery plan projects. So it's been a good update from there. What I can say is I'm not an expert in each of the actions, but I am quite happy to take any questions that are around there. And if I can't answer them today, I'm going to take that away to the people that were in and around those. And I'm also going to give you a wee bit of an update on our guidance for community engagement, human rights as well. So just to kind of note that our initial guidance was adopted in August 2021. However, based on our feedback, advice and training, we've been able to do a significant update on there. So on our guidance puts a greater emphasis on our legislation and regulatory requirements, if I can say that word, our data protection and privacy compliance. So what we would do round about our sources and advice and support round about that. And also best practice on our engagements cycle as well. So steps and processes that we need to take and understand to make sure that we've got effective engagement. It updates on information relating to emergency situations and our temporary arrangements. So what we might need to do if we need to step up in any sort of situation, about how we do that round about best practice, round about engagement, how we value our lived experience in our engagement work. And it also draws attention to our recently developed impact assessments, integrated impact assessments in the process there as well. It also introduces a framework that helps better describe our level of engagement and around about our project work, the voice engagement planning tool and suggested learning and development standards, and also a framework tool for our organisational self-evaluation. I must kind of commend our engagement and consultation officer, Matt, for doing a lot of the updates on our framework here and our guidance here. There's been a lot of progress on that report so far. As I say, I'm happy to take any questions, but I might not be able to answer every one of them, but I can take them away for you to find out.
Okay, do we have any questions, comments, Martin and Hussein?
Thank you, Chair. So the framework is due to, I'm not sure if expires the word, runs until 2025. So has work already started on the next version, on the next iteration? Because there are so many good actions going through. Two that I'd want to highlight is one on deprivation, which is outcome 4, I think. There's a lot of very positive work there. Some is still ongoing. For example, there's work ongoing relating to smoking and vaping. I'd want that to continue to have a priority on that, because there's so much more to do there. And there are also mention of outcomes in relation to mental health, which again, these are ongoing areas of work. These are journeys that we're on. So just to get an understanding of how we're continuing to push forward on this agenda beyond 2025.
You have to go first.
I'll take that. That's okay. Yeah, so what we've done with our equality outcomes and mainstreaming framework is link it very closely to our strategic plan. And we're just about to refresh our strategic plan this year. So part of that refresh will be looking out for any refresh that we need to do in the equality outcomes. So the two will go hand in hand.
and, you know, a couple of projects that you mentioned there are also in the Lloyd. So we're, you know, we're trying to make sure that we're not doing multiple actions, but we're feeding into multiple agendas with the same key actions.
Great, thank you. I think it's worth noting that many of the sections are in progress and some are completed. So it does indicate that this is an ongoing journey. But it's so, which makes you question, you know, why do we have a completed category at all, I suppose, because you're always finding new challenges to address, new problems to solve. That's all. Thank you.
You also want to take away that suggestion because it seems to make a certain degree of sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're saying, sorry.
Thank you, John.
I always spot Martin first because
Thank you very much. I'd like to just focus on a couple of details around the community engagement piece, and can I first of all commend that document. I think it's extremely well written. I strongly encourage everyone to read it. That's involved in engagement, and as some colleagues may know, it's an area of interest for me. Very welcome the point in there around looking at the Scottish Government guidance on valuing engagement, not just because it's the right thing to do, but also because it potentially eliminates a barrier to people who would otherwise use that time for other things and not be able to engage with us. I'm just wondering if you have any ballpark time frame as to when that review of that guidance and a proposed implementation methodology might come about.
So I suppose we're reviewing our guidance all the time, and you know, Matt's very, very good at also making sure that we've got that links in with the Scottish Government. He's also been very proactive in working with Health Improvement Scotland as well to make sure that we've got that training implementation going on across our teams. So there's always there. I suppose we're reviewing it all the time. So I think it was August 2021 was the original guidance. So we'd be looking to do our review probably again in line with that to make sure that we're in line with our strategic plan again. So that's what within the 3 years mark to make sure that we're constantly doing that review process. Is that okay?
Yeah. Just here as well. So in terms of the Scottish Government guidance, one thing that we need to look out for there is the paying people, the cost of paying people for their involvement. So that's why we haven't sort of taken that full step in our local guidance just yet, because we have to do that review alongside our budget and from our budget setting. So we'll pick that particular point up this year.
My second question is, and it really kind of almost follows on from what you just mentioned there, because resourcing will be a factor in this, just given the fortunate times that we're in. The guidance quite rightly says that any engagement should be accessible and adaptable to the needs of the people that we're engaging with. And I think we'll all agree that that is absolutely the case. I'm just wondering, because I don't know, in terms of the resource availability for the partnership, could you maybe just give some assurance on do we have that resource, both in terms of staff time but also in terms of specialist knowledge, where, for example, a person who is involved in engagement may require, say, a document in an alternative format, or perhaps requires a BSL interpreter to attend a focus group or participation, or if somebody maybe requires a one-to-one session to allow them to give their views. Just a bit of narrative and reassurance that we do have the capacity to provide that, so that we're not in any way excluding anyone, however minorly, from being able to participate.
No, yeah, thank you for that, because you're right. And actually, to note as well, we've actually just done a joint plan on our British Sign Language plan, along with Aberdeen City Council, which we're due to be published this week, actually. I think it came out yesterday. So we'll send that round as a service notice. But obviously we would want to make sure that that is actually embedded within our guidance as well, to make sure that any accessibility and any the capacity that we would have to do that is obviously working with organisations like NES and such like, that we've got that capacity in place, that we can kind of make sure that that is available for everyone. Probably we'll take that away to note, actually, to make sure that that's within our guidance as well, that our translation services and any support that we have around about there would be included in there too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loath to add any more onto your workload. I do think, I concur with what John said earlier, but I do think that would be helpful, especially things around alternative formats, because just speaking for myself, I see this as a document, and I think you do mention it somewhere in here. It's not only for members of staff to look at, but potentially for members of the public who want to engage with the partnership in whatever way, to be able to know that those services are available even before they get to the point of need, and to give them that confidence that they can engage in a way that suits them. My third question is and final question, I promise, is probably one for taking away and just mulling over, but just based on my own experience with public participation and engagement in other areas, sometimes you can almost get into a running loop whereby you have people who are engaging, they love doing what they do, they love giving their time, but it almost kind of rolls on, until perpetuity, because we don't take that time to just step in and say, actually, I know you probably really enjoy what you're doing, but does this skill suit your circumstances, your lifestyle? And sometimes people can potentially find it difficult to say, actually, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, but I need to step back because I've got other commitments or whatever. I'm just wondering, do we have that mechanism built in to our engagement, that we do check in with people and say, is this still working for you?
I think in terms of Matt Carter, who's dedicated in that post, obviously for consultation engagement, that's something we can definitely explore with Matt. But he is doing things similar to that with the Carers Reference Group, for example, and touching base with them on a regular basis. I think it's every 4 to 6 weeks. So we do have mechanisms in place to do that, but we can certainly explore that in further detail in relation to this guidance with Matt himself. So definitely one for us to mull over.
Thank you, and I'm glad you mentioned consultations, because consultation fatigue is something that I think affects every sector and potentially every organisation. And what we wouldn't want to do is inadvertently potentially drive people away. But thanks for taking your time to indulge me on that.
Martin? Oh, sorry. Oh, is it on the same point? I think I had Shona McFarlane had a hand up first. Sorry.
It's okay.
Hi, sorry, do you want me to speak now?
Yes, yep.
So it's just regarding the GDPR aspects and the engagement with the community. Lived experience is obviously lived experience and may be traumatic for others to hear within focus groups. So one, how do you handle that? Because I think everybody's lived experience is very important to take on board, but might not be appropriate for a more kind of focus or open forum. And the second thing is GDPR. What protections do these people have within these focus groups to say that this information doesn't or isn't released to perhaps parties that they might find it problematic with, if that makes sense. So that's my 2 points. Thank you.
Who'd like to pick that up?
Yeah, I'll take that. So absolutely, we always offer the opportunity for feedback to be provided on a one-to-one basis. So if anybody indicates within a group setting that they would want to speak to us, but not in that setting where others might hear, we will make, and Matt does on a regular basis, have one-to-one meetings with folks. The other thing that we do is we tend not to share any particular details that folks share with us. We take themes from the feedback that we get, so it's not that we're taking written notes of anything and sharing it with others. We just use those themes, and again, You know, if somebody says to us that, you know, they absolutely don't want anything that they have shared with us to be shared anywhere else, then we will absolutely agree to that. We're all, as officers of the council or employees of NHS Grampian, you know, we you know, have that within our contracts, that we have to maintain confidentiality and adhere to GDPR principles.
Sorry, there was one more issue as well, if I may. Your focus groups seem to be during the day. And what about people that are working? Because I still haven't had an engagement with anybody out with those focus hours, which tend to be during the day. So for people that are working and or have family commitments, that's quite difficult.
Matt has done.
Yeah, so we are exploring opportunities to engage evenings and over weekends, and that's something that we are continuing to explore with Matt. He has been doing evenings and weekends recently in a different area, so that's absolutely something that we'll take on board.
Thank you.
Do you want to come in?
Yeah, if I just to come in to reassure you there, depending on the project as well. So, for example, when we consulted with communities around GP practices and commissioning and whether a branch is being closed or not, we do, and I have attended regularly evening and or weekend sessions to ensure that we are inclusive. So sometimes it's more project specific, but just to assure you, we do take that on board.
Similar with the carers reference group, I think there's four options every 6 weeks offered by evening, weekends and such like as well. So
yeah, it's just regarding the word project that you used there. I just don't know how people's lived experience can be termed a project, or it can fit into a project. Sorry, could you explain further?
Yeah, so when I say project, I'm just using a generic term for a piece of work that might be, for example, a branch closure of a practice.
Okay, so it's not specific to the lived experience then, is what you're saying?
No.
Okay, Shona?
Yeah, no, that's fine. It was just a few issues I had around that, so thank you for clarifying.
That's good to raise them. Martin, you had some questions?
Yeah, thank you. This has been a really useful discussion, and I think it's been really good to focus on health inequalities. So one particular issue has sprung to mind, which is the council is beginning some work to investigate the issue of healthy weight, particularly in relation to children and young people. How there is a correlation between weight and attainment and achievement, especially in school, educational, vocational, life chance circumstances. So there's this work that's going to continue to explore solutions, and that seems to fit in with that. Potentially will fit in with the refresh of the strategic plan, and also with the review of the equalities outcome framework, because obviously it's about partnering up, because you wouldn't be looking at healthy weight just as an educational issue, but it's obviously also about healthy lifestyles, expectations of what people can expect from organisations which deliver educational and health services. So is this an area where there could be further joint thinking, even working together, to really focus on what is very much a health inequalities issue, because there is data that demonstrates the correlation with deprivation, zones of deprivation, and it is a major health concern. And there are some good practice projects. Amsterdam, for example, has had a very effective whole systems approach. It'd be nice if we did something together on this locally.
I can see Phil Mackey's got his hand up. I'm guessing Phil won't want to come in on this point.
I am, but I think Fiona wanted to come in as well. I'm happy to defer to Fiona first if.
I'll go first, Phil, because you'll be much more articulate than me, so you can finish better. So absolutely, Martin, thank you for raising that, and absolutely that challenges with children and their weight obviously impacts on their school and everything else, but also on their health for longer term. So the evidence is absolutely there. So we will, so Julie chairs the Best Start in Life group, which has got multiple different agencies around it. And I guess that we've already done quite a lot of education, and Ella and I meet regularly, as does Julie and Shona meet as well, to make sure that we are joining stuff up, to make sure that we're doing it once for Aberdeen rather than we're doing different things, different bits. So absolutely committed to that, Mark.
Great. Thank you very much. I mean, from some of the initial comments and feedback, there are issues around quality of food, calories, expectations of that. I mean, there's very much that kind of cultural and awareness raising issue at the centre of all of this. And I think if we worked together and presented us a clear agenda, a clear shared platform on this, we might be able to achieve some really good outcomes in terms of equalities. Thank you. Phil?
Thank you very much, Chair. Martin, an excellent question, and the simple answer is yes. Bring it on. I spent most of Friday morning with colleagues within the City Council, exploring how we bring a whole system approach into the overall systems that we already have in Aberdeen City, particularly within the context of both the community planning partnership, but also by extension into the IJB. This is not a single organisation area. It's not one where we can simply say, here are the bits we're contributing and expect it to work together. So I think the first thing to say is that towards the late summer into early autumn, we will be looking at a significant event across the city at exploring where we need to improve our whole system approach working. We can expect to see this reflected within the preventative work that I'm leading for within the Health and Social Care Partnership. We can expect it to see as part of the wider contributions through the North East Population Health Alliance, looking to ensure that Grampian-wide benefit is actually put into place around whole system obesity. This is one of those things that require not just good ideas, but actually concerted long-term work. And I think the emphasis I'm hearing from so many people is about no longer how do we, but why aren't we? And I think that's a very encouraging change in attitude.
Very encouraging, that practical aspect of let's collaborate. It's very, very positive. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Phil. So any more questions, comments? Not seeing anybody. Okay. My plan was to say, could we agree the recommendations on pages 61 to 62? I'm just checking this out as an idea. Would it be worth adding a recommendation around instructing or asking officers to ensure that we take into account a point about alternative formats? I mean, I'm sure the guys would do that anyway, but it just kind of feels like quite an important point that we might want to highlight in terms of recommendations. Officers are nodding, but
could I suggest that we tie into that recommendation, potentially adding into the existing document around that accessible formats, maybe just listing the range of options, almost like a pick and mix type thing, where you have a menu of potential interventions that might be available for people who want to engage, just so that it is front and centre for anyone looking at this as to exactly what the council is able to offer. And granted, there will always be those who maybe require some more bespoke methods of doing things, but I think it would just be helpful in also putting us clearly on the front foot that we are actively tailoring to anybody and everybody's needs.
Can I have that included?
Yeah, the guys are nodding. Yeah. So yeah, subject to us coming up with a suitable form of word, which is probably not a good idea to kind of write it off the hoof or ad lib. But if we can agree a suitable form of words with that recommendation to add to the ones which are in the paper, would we be happy with that?
Yes.
Yep, we agree. Yeah. Grant, thank you very much. That brings us to item 6.1, which is the Q4 financial monitoring update, which is in the additional circulation that came out on Friday. And it is going to be Paul to take us through this one.
Yeah, thank you.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. This paper summarises the budget performance for year ended 31st of March 24. The IGB has ended a year end with an overspend of 10.774 million as per Appendix A. This is a significant increase from previous forecasts, and the variances are included in the report and on the appendices. In summary, significant pressures have arisen from increased demand across all three packages, and during the year we have had an 18% increase in client numbers and reduced our unmet need in the system as a whole. Unfunded costs related to the final National Care Home contract rate, care packages transitioning from children's services, and the final pay award have all added to the pressure. Now, some of these pressures were accounted for in the 24-25 MTFF, but for 24-25, as a result of this outturn, additional savings targets have to be allocated to SLT members, and they've been requested to review this, monitor, and report on. To this end, I will have fortnightly meetings with SLT members to discuss their individual targets and the associated risks and mitigations to ensure that the overspend does not recur. We are fortunate position to have reserves to fund this year-end position. Therefore, we will not be requesting any additional funding from NHSG or Aberdeen City Council. But the impact of this overspend is to reduce our unearmarked reserves to 4.3 million. Therefore, work mentioned previously is of the utmost importance and has already commenced. And if you have any further questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thanks, Paul. I will throw this out. Questions. I'll indulge myself and ask the first one, which is in the paper we talk about the fact that we in Aberdeen are having to return our unspent COVID funding, but some IJBs aren't. My understanding on this is that most IJBs default position is you return your unspent funding. The ones that are allowed to hang on to it are those that are having to go back to the local authority or to the health board because their reserves are not sufficient to meet their overspend. So that's why some are keeping it and some are returning it. That's yeah, that's thanks. I've got some more. I'll throw it out to questions from others first. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question about the recommendations. So 2.1D, and it's about the planned internal audits on budget setting and monitoring. I wondered, has there been an update set for that internal audit? It might also end.
Yeah, that was one of our audits on the audit plan for this year for 24-25. And what we're going to be doing, we're trying to meet with internal audit this week and bring that forward. So the audit actually happens before I leave in July. So we're trying to meet with them this week to get the scope of the audit and then hopefully be completed by middle of July.
Yeah, indeed, yes.
Thank you. I was going to ask about Appendix B, analysis of variances on the mainstream budget. And I was just wondering what's the item called uplift funding?
Yeah, at the end of every month we get funding from the Scottish Government, via the Scottish Government to the NHS. And then the following month, what happens is that This funding comes in late on in the month, and then the following month it's allocated against the relevant budgets. So this is funding that we received in March for 23-24. It just hasn't had time to allocate it across the separate lines, but it is for 23-24. It is to offset our bottom line position.
Thank you, yes. One more question for me. It's about Appendix C, summary of risks and mitigating actions. Are these actions sort of already underway, and are they the sort of thing that would be identified as part of the usual project monitoring process?
Yes, they're continual throughout the year, and again, we're bringing them forward at 24-25, and it's those risks and mitigations that I'll be bringing up with the fortnightly meetings that I'm planning and having going forward, and this will all form part of the quarterly returns going forward.
Yes, I intended to ask a question on but it was in essence one that you asked. So, thank you very much.
Any more? Seeing any more hands? I had a couple of other questions. I'll find my annotations. Oh yeah, it was on paragraph 3.9 in terms of the underspend that we've got on primary care. Most of it, for example, reduction in premises costs looks good. The only issue I'd have with that saving is where part of it is to do with sickness levels. So if people are off sick, that's reducing our costs. Is that?
It's yeah, part of the overspend. Look, the majority of it is on premises, but like I said, some of it is on the seniority and sickness levels, but they've actually reduced. So the payments for the sickness cover is less than what we've got.
Ah, right. So yeah, I'm with you.
It's a positive benefit of the sickness levels.
So yeah, so we're not paying for locums or agency staff. That's good to hear, particularly in light of the conversation we had a few minutes ago about staff health and well-being. And my other question again relates to paragraph 3.3, which is around it's back to the issue of the money's being returned. So the money that's the unspent COVID money that's being returned isn't just going back to Edinburgh to go into the pot. It's being returned to NHS Grampian. So although we've not got it, which is a shame, at least it's going to be spent in the northeast on healthcare. Is that?
Yeah. The option was to either return it to the Scottish Government and then for them to passport across the sector, or it went straight into the NHS. Yeah.
Okay. Anything further on this one? No.
There's a typo in the recommendations B. It should actually say the environments as appendix D instead of as a.
Okay. So again, not seeing any more hands. So subject to correcting the typo, are we happy to agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That brings us to 6.2, which is the annual resilience report, which is in the main circulation. You can switch between papers as Martin comes to the table.
Thank you, Chair. The IGB before it, the annual assurance report on the IGB's resilience arrangements in fulfilment of its duties as a Category 1 responder under the Civil Contingency Act 2004. The IGB has emergency planning responsibilities under the Act. These responsibilities were confirmed in April 2021, and the report provides an annual position statement on our activity and preparedness in the areas set out in the Act, including details of further planned improvements to ensure the IGB and the partnership are in as strong a position as possible to respond to emergencies. The report provides updates on the further strengthening and development of governance arrangements around emergency planning, changes to how the senior managers on call operate in the Health and Social Care Partnership, which helps the IGB undertake its duties under the Act, details of incidents that the partnership have been involved in and its response to those incidents during 23 and 24, training and exercise undertaken during the same period, the updating and reviewing of emergency plans, and specific updates on the Persons at Risk database, also known as the PARD, and the UK National Strategy to Reduce the Risk of Terrorism, which is Contest. So the reports were noted, but I'm happy to take any questions that the IGB may have.
Any questions from Martin on this one? Martin.
There was mention there on page 137 of a tabletop exercise, which is, I assume, relating to the risk of the arrival of highly toxic substances. Is that correct? I'm just wondering what kind of likelihood is that, and what level of danger would be presented, and sort of numbers of people could be affected if that were to happen. I realise it's a hypothetical, but it does appear to be quite a realistic, quite a real threat.
Through you, Chair. So it's kind of the tabletop exercise around new synthetic drugs coming into the city, and it is based on experiences elsewhere in the UK. So I think it is a risk, and a lot to do with emergency planning is looking at those risks and then being as prepared as we can be. So we undertook the tabletop exercise, which was run by the Aberdeen Drug and Alcohol Partnership. And then the outcomes of that have been taken to the Chief Officer Group of the COG, where they received the initial reports and are taking kind of necessary mitigations and controls to minimise the risk.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go Jude Brown's hand up first, and then Angela Scott. Oh. Right.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Martin, for the paper. Martin, my question's around about linkage, because obviously lots of the services that the partnership delivers sit within NHS Grampian buildings, etc. So my question's in relation to things like business continuity plans, and are these joined up with the work that's already going on in NHS Grampian? I'm thinking about things like national power outage, various things like that. Thanks.
Through you, Chair. I think the report mentions the number of different groups that the partnership's involved in on both the NHS Grampian side as well as the council side. So I'm representing the IGB on those meetings. So in relation to business continuity planning, that's part of the NHS Grampian Civil Contingency group. So some around that and the equivalent for the council as well. In terms of national planning, national power outages planning, again linked in with both NHS Grampian and the council, and that is being orchestrated and overseen, I suppose, at the local resilience partnership level, with the plan that the various partners who are represented on the local resilience partnership are developing their own plans around national power outages. And then there'll be that kind of read through at the local resilience partnership level to ensure that there's no kind of duplication or assumptions or dependencies, etc. So hopefully that gives the IGB a bit of assurance around those governance arrangements.
Thanks for that, Martin. So any more? Any more hands? Can't see any. No. Okay, in which case, are we happy to note the progress on our resilience arrangements during 23-24 as per the recommendations?
Agreed.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to item 6.3, which is the outcome of the culture research project. I'll hand over to Alison. And this one is a good news story, so very happy with that. Looking at the clock, unless this item gets done in like 5 minutes or less, I think we might take a break then, if that's acceptable to folk. Yep. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you. So this is just the formal presentation of the report on the outcome of the research project that was undertaken in relation to IJP culture and the work that we've been doing culture over the last few years. As John says, it's a good news story overall, very positive report, although we have taken some learning from it. And we have had a number of discussions around about the report, both at the Culture Sounding Board meetings and at the topic-specific seminars. So, as I say, just a formal presentation of the report itself and also noting the actions that were taken from it. The Culture Sounding Board had a sort of tracker of commitment and progress against those commitments anyway. So we just added anything that wasn't there already. We've added that onto the tracker that you can see there, and that's the tracker as at the 19th of March, which was the last meeting of the Culture Sounding Board. The next meeting is next week, I think. So we'll obviously be updating these progress against these actions as we go. But I think that's all probably I need to say about the report.
Okay. Hussein.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the report. And can I firstly begin by putting on record our thanks to the two master students for the report that they put together. It was very comprehensively done and a very good read, and absolutely concur with what Alison has said, that I think a lot of the things that come out of this report, certainly in the 8 or so months I've been here, I've seen coming through in the work that we've done. So that's definitely a positive sign. I'm very pleased to see recognition of some of the points where we can still make progress around the workload balance, around doing things in a way that allows us to maximize our participation for some of the non-formal IJB board meetings. And in that particular vein, given that the learning that we have came from a review, it would almost make sense at some point in the future to do this again, to see how we're progressing along that journey, to make sure that we're going in the right direction of travel. So I just wondered if there'd been any thoughts to perhaps recommissioning this in a year or 18 months time, so that we self-evaluate, but also externally evaluate ourselves to make sure that we're continuing on that journey. And I'm particularly mindful in terms of the numbers of participants in the research, that we weren't able to get as high a number of voting members as perhaps we would have liked. And that might be an opportunity for us to look at that time as well.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good point. Hadn't actually given any thought to that, but now that you mention it, I think that is something that we should absolutely do. I should probably say that the students thoroughly enjoyed doing the project. It exposed them to an area of business, if you like, that they hadn't been before, and they both really enjoyed it. So I think the university will probably be willing to listen to us if we want to ask for a repeat of the project in future. Obviously, it'll be different students that are doing it, but that might be a good thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I hadn't thought of it either, but I think it's a very good idea. Because I think, I mean, for me, the list of things that works, which is on page 147, is really good. And I think there's a temptation when you see something like that to say, hey, aren't we brilliant? Tick the box. We can forget it now. I think it should be a thing that you're renewing constantly. And I think also assuming that we can continue to get a good response. The other thing that I'm quite keen, if we can do it, is to embed the culture more widely in the organisation. I know, Alison, I think you're already working on that from some of the stuff that came out of the conference. Actually, I thought from the conference, what people were saying wasn't that dissimilar in terms of what the overall culture is like. But again, it's something we need to be working on constantly. Any more, Martin?
Yeah, thank you. It's a very impressive piece of work. Many thanks to all who were involved in producing it. It's very good to see that there is such a strong commitment to building positive relationships within this organisation. One element that I thought that could have been maybe explored further is the production of recommendations, because it's very much about process, about how we work together. So what are the substantive benefits, I suppose, in terms of policy development, improvement, that could, I mean, is that asking too much? It wasn't perhaps the process, the whole exercise was probably not geared towards that, but is there not an opportunity that might still be available to us to find out suggestions and recommendations for policy development?
Martin, do you want to take that, or do I?
or
Yeah,
I think it's a good question. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. There's always the opportunity to review what we're doing and see if there's ways that we can improve it. And I wonder if this is something we could take into the culture sounding board meeting. If we can have Martin, I'm not sure if you want to be at the meeting next week, but maybe we could take that discussion into there. And if it is something that we can build into any future research, then happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because just to raise again that refresh of the strategic plan. I think there might be a way of integrating everything together. Because there's undoubtedly an opportunity for us to design service improvements in some way. That's all.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's take it to the next culture sounding board. Fine. Any more questions, comments?
Sure.
Yep, sorry.
Just provide some assurance to Martin that there are discussions and consideration being given to making use of capacity within the research world, and Martin will be aware of the health determinants research collaboration in Aberdeen. So, for example, Martin, virtually the director of that, he and I have had discussions with Phil Mackey online. And you're absolutely right. It's about the context of that new strategic plan that'll be forthcoming, is making sure that where we are going to make interventions as a partnership, we're maximising the impact of the limited resource that we've got, and the more data and insight that we can get to support us in prioritising the resources we've got, the better. So it's just providing some assurance there that some of those discussions are happening, and hopefully we'll see the benefit of that in the new strategic plan.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. In which case, are we happy to agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Yeah. Right, so we're now at not 90 minutes, but 85 minutes. So rather than going to the next item now, I'm proposing a 10-minute break to 25 to 12. So we can take a break, recharge the batteries, take a comfort break, and set an example to everyone that breaks are important. That's okay. Grant. Break, folks. agenda, just a request for those of us around the table, when we're speaking, if we can speak up, because the folk at the back can't necessarily hear us. I haven't spotted the fact that we've given them lots of work to do without them being able to hear that. So yeah, if we can move back to the agenda, we're on now item 6.3, which is Merriwell and Timmer Market Integrated Service Review. And this is going to be Teresa Waugh and Simon Rayner.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Waugh. I'm the Primary Care Development Manager for the Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership. I'm joined this morning by Simon Rayner, who's online. He's the strategic lead for the Aberdeen City Alcohol and Drug Partnership. And I'm also joined this morning by Emma King, who's our primary care lead and lead officer for the report. So the report that you're being presented with and its recommendations align to the following strategic aims of the Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership strategic plan of preventing ill health, caring together, keeping the population safe at home, and achieve healthy, fulfilling lives. The report being presented today provides an update on the programme of work during the past 18 months, which directly contributes to the delivery of the partnership's strategic aims as highlighted in section 3.2 of the report, and with a particular focus on preventing ill health to meet the complex needs of those at risk of drug-related harm. So page 167 of your report pack highlights that local reviews of drug deaths show that people at highest risk of death have multiple underdiagnosed and untreated health problems. During the past 5 years, between 2018 and 2023, there have sadly been 332 drug-related deaths in Aberdeen. Of those, 76% were found to have significant underlying health conditions. In response to this, the project team, in conjunction with the ADP investment programme, have aligned £480,000 of funding to support the implementation of the Medication Assisted Treatment, or MAT standards, and service redesign, which has included enhancing collaboration between the Merivale practice, the Integrated Drug Service, Alcohol and Drug Partnership, and the Community Nursing Outreach Team. Page 169 to 178 provides further detailed information on the work streams and priorities of the programme of work, one of which being a health screening initiative of health assessments, given the high number of drug-related deaths linked to underdiagnosed health conditions. And figure 2 on page 169 to 170 of your pack provides an overview of the programme priorities and their associated status overview. So in summary, the project will continue until November 2024 to progress any outstanding actions as described in the workstream updates. The team will use the data gathered and lessons learned to inform the options appraisal, which will outline the future trajectory of the Merivale practice as outlined in the report recommendations. So thank you for taking the time to consider the report, information and recommendations, and myself, Emma and Simon will be happy to take any questions or queries you may have. Thank you.
Thanks for that very, very useful summary. Any questions? No. Oh. Jamie Knowles. Jamie.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, really good report. I was made aware of some of the organisational change within the drug and alcohol community teams from the front door up at ARI, and the impact that could have across areas within the hospital, i.e. longer waits, because these people are no longer able to access other areas that they would. So it's just to highlight that to the board as well, and that can have an implication.
Could I come back on that
one,
course, yeah. Chair, if I may? Thank you very much, Jamie, for your question. I think it's important to highlight that specific team are not within scope of this project. Simon, do you want to come in on any of that? But just to confirm.
There is a separate work stream looking at that and a workshop planned for the end of the week to look at how alternative provision could be developed to support people coming into that area of the system and support staff as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and on the back of that, can I just ask how we link those up in the, if we're trying to get a whole system approach, probably need to be joined up. I'm sure you guys are, but
I'll let Simon answer that one if that's okay.
It might be one of the options that we consider. I mean, the sort of, I suppose, the interface between primary care and secondary care is really important. And I guess the secondary care emergency department will see people in the most acute phase. So there is a sort of impact that we need to look at in relation to that. Whether it joins up into one system or how related they need to be, we can work on that. But I suppose in a sense they are related, but they're also responding to different issues and different presentations at different times in terms of the need. But certainly that whole interface of unscheduled care and primary care needs to be thought of as a system. So I think it's a really helpful point, Councillor Cook.
Thanks. That's my first helpful point this year, I think. Any more questions? Not seeing anyone. Okay, in which case can we approve the recommendations?
Agreed.
Right, that brings us on to the supplementary work plan. Care at home. If we can bring in Neil Stevenson on this. Just a reminder, we've got an exempt appendix on this one. So if we've got any questions, can we keep them to what's in the public paper? But if you think you might want to ask some questions that are kind of crossing between the two, we can always go into private session, particularly if we want to do that before we approve the recommendations. So, Neil.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, and thank you everyone for your time this morning. For those of you who don't know me, and I appreciate there's people at the back there who won't know me, I am the Strategic Procurement Manager, which really doesn't say anything at all, really. I manage the contracts team for Aberdeen City IGB, and also we a shared service, so we work in Aberdeenshire Council as well. We support the IGB in commissioning services, and our goal is to procure high quality services that deliver the right services to people in Aberdeen and commission these in a lawful, fair and transparent manner. We are, as I said, a shared service, and that has some benefits because we can do a bit of collaborative work as well across city and shire. We are presenting this morning one business case on a supplementary work plan for your consideration, and we are seeking approval for a tender for care and support at home services across Aberdeen City and the subsequent awarding of a contract for 5 years plus 2 one-year extensions, so 7 years in total. There is a current contract in place with a consortium, and that's been in place for a number of years now. The business case aligns with the partnership's strategic direction, and in this case is the next step in the development around essential care at home services following a successful 4-year contract with the current consortium. Many of you will recall the considerable amount of work with the care at home market back in around 2019, 2020, to where we are today in terms of quite a radical change at the time. In a moment, I'll pass to Shona and to Catherine, who can give a brief outline of the more sort of technical aspects of the proposal. But I would imagine it will also include going back to the original presentation this morning we started off with. the video, which I think is intrinsically linked to these services going forward. Of course, very happy to answer any questions. And during the consultation period, I had a number of queries, mostly around the contract values, uplifts, financial elements, and together with a little bit of tidying up, John, around the direction. Very happy with that, John. To be clear, the notional uplifts included in the paper are added on there in terms of our experience of what usually happens, both of local uplifts, but also from Scottish Government uplifts around, for example, the real living wage. And secondly, on ensuring that we're not repeatedly coming back and harassing you, asking you for more approvals. There is, of course, a very sizable budget here. I think, for the avoidance of doubt, I think we need to, well, considering the severity of the current financial position, there is a 6-month termination clause in the current contract and will be in the new contract if you approve the tender. And we will also add in, Fraser and I did some work a couple of weeks ago on another contract where we put in an additional clause around making sure we do an annual financial assessment to ensure that we're still getting best value. So when you see those high figures in the report, consider them all flexible in their number. Again, it's about following the public fund, making sure we get good value for our services. In terms of an impact assessment, the stage one has been done and there's no impact at this point. If we get the tender approval, then we will again consider the impact assessment at that point with the new setup to ensure that everyone's heard and any risks are mitigated against. And as ever, we will do our rigorous monitoring on a regular basis. And I don't know why my computer keeps doing that. I've turned the sound down and it beeps every 2 minutes. I cannot stop it. I'm very sorry. And on that, I think maybe just pass to Shona and to Catherine to maybe give a little bit more meat on the bones of what's going to happen going forward.
Okay.
So just to give some reassurance that this contract has been co-designed with providers and people with experience, opinions and thoughts in regard to what's working well, what needs to be improved, has been built into the contract over a series of 4 workshops, which we've been working really closely with providers, and some really good developments going forward has been built into the contract, as well as development work for the duration of the contract life to work with providers to continue to develop and keep abreast of changes and be sure that we're reflecting the tech first information and actually applying a tech first lens. So we're working with social work colleagues as well to make sure that when people are assessed, that we're assessing the tech capacity right at the get-go. So even if people are not in the situation that they're able to use tech, perhaps they'll be able to use it in the future. And if we know what they already have, it reduces the financial burden on the partnership as well as the individual.
Yeah, as Neil said, 4 years ago, the partnership made quite a brave move to commission care at home services in a very different way, in that previously we had a framework of providers. We went to this one contract for all care at home, and I think over that 4 years, so we've sort of reviewed where we're at with that, and I think the decision is a lot of the progress that we'd hoped to make has started. So around outcome focused delivery, enablement, step up, step down packages, creating that capacity within that block fund. But it's, with that work's just started, and we need this time from the new contract to really embed that and really make the changes that we know we can make through tech, through enablement, through step up, step down. So, we envisage that if we get the service spec right, which we've made a start on building that, that we can really make a difference in creating capacity within that block fund to meet, the need of people within Aberdeen.
Okay, any questions or comments on this one?
Forgive me, this is an area that I find myself somewhat unknowledgeable in, so apologies for the rather basic question here. But in terms of the approach that you take, I know you mentioned an annual financial assessment. Given the length of this contract, and we all know about the uncertainties around workforce generally within health and social care, what would your process be for making sure, because obviously we don't know what the workforce situation will be in 3 years' time, let alone 7 years' time. How would you build that due diligence into the process? Could you maybe just give some narrative, paint a picture of what that looks like in terms of making sure that we don't potentially hit a bump in the road down the line and we find that conditions have changed in terms of delivery and obviously to the people that we support as well?
Yes, I think I'm not 100% sure on the current situation, but we usually have a quarterly review process that we have with the provider or providers, as in the current case, and that is really just an opportunity for everybody to get around the table and to look at the any issues that are coming up, any trends, any aspects of the services that aren't working, and a chance for the professionals to get around the table and to review those. And that, as I say, should be done on a quarterly basis, or as and when required, so it can be done at any point. And in terms of the overall annual review, I think it's become quite clear, especially as the block funded contract, that it's important to make sure that each of the areas is funded appropriately, because on occasion some areas will need a little bit of additional funding, but that maybe can be taken from somewhere else, and other areas maybe will be underspent. And it all comes back to that relationship building that we have, and that's what's worked, I think, really well with the current contract. And that we have that relationship, we've managed to have that foundation for when things do hit the rocks and you have to sort those things out. So I think I'm looking to Shona and Catherine, do you want to add to that?
No, we do have Europeans with the current provider, and not because there's a good overview as to how many packages they've taken on in the last quarter, what the forecasts are, where the challenges are, and what we're doing around it. And staffing is one of the areas that we're looking at as well. And so far, fingers crossed, there hasn't been much concern about recruitment in regard to ensuring the packages can be delivered.
May I come? Sorry,
go on.
I would just also add that at recent times, Shona has begun the commissioning academy, and I think that's no doubt she speaks about it all the time, so I'm sure we won't hear about it. But that's certainly an area where I think the whole staffing issue that is not just Aberdeen City, it's across Moray, Aberdeenshire, across the whole of Scotland, I'm sure, is an area where we can get together and try and find creative solutions to staffing issue. And
so just to understand this, and I want to be explicitly clear that this is purely a hypothetical situation that I'm alluding to here. I have every confidence in our officers to ensure that things are managed as they should be. But hypothetically, if we run into a position, let's say 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line, whenever it may be, that we are hitting the rocks or hitting that bump in the road, that would be the time when, as you mentioned in your opening, and thank you for that summary, I found that really helpful, that you would be in a hypothetical position to exercise that 6-month exit clause.
Yeah.
Should that be necessary? Hopefully that won't be.
I think the answer to that is yes and no. I think, yes, we absolutely would be able to do that at any point, but I would like to think that any bumps in the road will be considered when they're small pebbles before they become large boulders. And that relationship building that we'll do is the place where we will make sure that we manage any of those situations long before they become a problem, which would result in needing to terminate.
Thank you. Consider reassured. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Yeah. Consider my fingers crossed.
Mark.
Thanks, Chair. How confident are you on your 3% notional uplift?
Yeah, I mean you can always defer to Paul, but that is it is a notion, and I think a lot of it depends on the real living wage uplift that is awarded. So we always reflect that in our contracts. So it depends, what that is, on year really, because we will always pass that on to providers to ensure that they can pay staff.
Just to add, up to this point, or you correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got real living wage uplift money from the government when that has come. So it's 3% on top of what we would expect to come from the government. So it gives us that bit of flexibility.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, just on the back of that question, the wages element is probably, would I be right in thinking, is quite a big chunk of the contract?
Yeah. I think for care and support at home, for non-residential services, you're talking somewhere around about
70, well, we usually get about 70 to 80%.
70 to 80%
direct costs.
is direct staff costs.
And I think doing, having this one block funded contract does give us efficiency of savings in terms of backroom costs, and certainly in terms of working with the consortium, we know that there's probably more we can do around that to ensure that a lot more of that funding goes to direct staffing costs.
And I'll go back to your video this morning. I think 2 years ago, where were we with tech-enabled care? Nowhere. 2 years down the line, we are where we are. How are we going to be in 2 years further down the line? It could be, a real transformation. So I think there's that as a positive.
Any more questions, comments? Not seeing any hands. Nope. Okay, in which case, I was going to say, can we agree with the recommendations unless someone has got any questions related to the exempt paper, the appendix?
Agreed.
Agreed. Great, thank you. Thanks, folks. That was very clear. Thank you. That brings us to item 6.6, which is the Morse Community Electronic Patient Record Evaluation and Contract.
I have a quick question for the executive. It's for the benefit of our observers. Can I suggest that we take the public paper, deal with them, and then deal with the exempt bit at the end, just so that they get benefit of the discussion?
Sorry, so you want to ask a question at the end?
Yeah, just the end, so that we don't do the whole item in private, just so that they get the benefit of the public part in the discussion.
And that's on the
Morse.
On the Morse one. Right. Okay. Fine. Right.
Unless you want to rejig the agenda to take out the end, sure, but other items after this.
I suppose we could do that, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Are folks happy to do that? Just move the Morse one to the end?
Yeah.
So that we can take the Morse both. Sorry.
It's all right. I'm just keeping my adrenaline.
I'm just being a square peg in a round hole as always.
Oh, okay, so we'll move 6.6 to the end, and we will go to 7.1, which is general adult mental health pathway, and it's Judith. We're planning to introduce this. I think Judith's going to give us a wee presentation at the start.
Well, Gillian and Ross are sorting out the presentation. It's a short presentation that was felt that from the agenda might be helpful just to put the comments onto a visual, because it's quite comprehended. Few diagrams to describe actually verbally. So we'll just get that up for each time. But my name is Judith McLennan. For those who don't know me, I'm the head of specialist mental health and support services at Cornwall Health Hospital. And I'm joined today by Kimberly Craig, who is our senior project officer working with us on adult mental health secondary care pathway review. Slide today is just a few slides, but I'll just take you through the paper at the same time so we don't have to do both. The paper's there for no time. So today we're going to be providing an overview of the adult mental health secondary care pathway review. And that will include what the ask of the review was, the activities that were undertaken, the outcomes of the review, and the recommendations that we've shared with the ISJB as a result of the review. A bit of background, the three chief officers in Grampian were agreed to complete a process map of the Grampian General Adult Mental Health Pathways by the end of 23-24 reporting period, considering redesign options for improved resident outcomes, efficiency and governance. The review would also serve to support the embedding of the Scottish Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy, which was published last June, which aims to improve mental health and wellbeing in Scotland. The review began in July 23 and was due to conclude at the end of March 24. Timeframe has largely been met, but due to the focus on budgeting for the March IGPs across Grampian
The earliest the steering group could conclude this last action to provide an update was May 2024. It is focused on the secondary care adult mental health pathway, and the scope of review has involved unscheduled care, unscheduled mental health care, including the Royal Cornwall Hospital 14, adult liaison psychiatry, community adult mental health teams, adult mental health inpatient wards, social work and intensive psychiatric care unit, and that's across Grampian. A steering group was established early on with stakeholders from across adult mental health service pathway, and there were two subgroups, one looking at the methodology for the review and the other focused on the involvement of lived experience in the review. How have we done it? And Kimberly, how have we done it? So we've collated a service information form for every service that works along the secondary care adult mental health pathway and completed process maps for each service. Clear themes in relation to the challenges stakeholders identified within the pathway have been identified, and 40 actions have been formed from problems directly or indirectly impacting the pathway. The themes from the feedback shared by the individuals with lived experience were included also. So these themes from the stakeholder groups include relationships, and that's relationships between primary and secondary adult mental health services, difficulty for patients to access services in either primary or secondary adult mental health care based on where the patient's referral is being made, what criteria is being met. Funding, for example, use of medical locums and the impact this has had on staff morale, for example, the pay differences, pause on project funding, differences in primary and secondary care funding. Recruitment and retention, morale of staff, work due to staff shortages, recruitment and retention of staff, not having enough nurses, consultants, retirement and loss of experience are significant roles. For example, mental health officer status, inconsistency in the patient pathway, or service delivery due to the use of locums. Communication and change, focused on improved communication between primary and secondary care. Staff are unaware of the governance structures of mental health and its relevant strategies, which we'll come on to, and we'll show that visually, or perhaps where some of that confusion is. Lack of clarity about what programme project works take place across Grampian and what should have a Grampian-wide input. The resources, lack of community provision, inability to better share or access information across partner services to aid patients, increase in referrals and diagnosis in specific areas, for example, autism spectrum disorder. And process, a lack of clear process mapping, clinical pathways, operational policies, and referring across areas. The themes from our lived experience included staffing, use of resources, staff training, staff behaviours, managing comorbidities, access to support, early intervention, access to information, referral to services, eligibility criteria, waiting times and stigma, service delivery, diversity to service delivery, rural isolation from services, quality of services. Moving on, discharge process, reviewing patient care and treatment, and working together, patient relationships, patient consent, communication, patient engagement, and collaborative working. So move on to our governance structure. So this visual gives a very clear indication across Grampian, this is the mental health and learning disabilities governance structure and why some services are finding it quite complicated to know where to go out with their services. And then I think we would still make some amendments to that if we could actually, probably still add one or two arrows because it's constantly evolving the governance structure. And that does demonstrate the 3 IGBs in NHS Grampian North East Strategic Partnership Group also. And if you think it's hard looking at that, it's quite difficult to negotiate and work within it as well. And I know colleagues within the senior leadership team will know that we are trying to smooth out any confusion we've got there. And the risks to the process mapping being completed, hold on, my screen's just gone off, include 24 national service standard specifications and policies that are currently rolled out, to which all parts of the Grampian Mental Health and Disability Services have a focus. The recommendations from the conclusion of this phase anyway of that mental health secondary pathway review is to update all Grampian IGBs. So Kimberly and I are taking the paper here first today, and then we've got meetings set up with Aberdeenshire and Moray IGBs at the end of this month. Final summary reports being shared with all stakeholders, including those with lived experience by the end of June. We've identified actions which we've grouped under 5 work streams, which are linked to the mental health core standards, which the government have asked us to prioritise for this coming term. In all of those 24 strategies, we focus on the core standards. And we're going to do that by developing task and finish working groups by the end of June 2024 and complete the write-up of that by September 2024. We'll take that back. So these are the 2 main strategies that we're focusing our work streams on, which is aligned to the 5 mental health standards. So of those 40 actions that we spoke about under those themes, then we're going to focus on the 5 core mental health standards, which is about access, assessment, care planning, treatment and support, moving between and out of adult mental health services, workforce, governance and accountability. And to finish, the recommendations of all work streams we've managed as a subgroup under the Mental Health and Disability Services Portfolio Board. We'll report to the Portfolio Board on the outcomes of the task and finish working groups in September 2024. Any changes to be implemented as agreed outcomes from the task and finish workshops will be delivered by March 2025 and will adhere to the RACI model, where we'll be responsible to the cross-system strategic delivery team, accountable to the Portfolio Board, consult frontline teams, lived experience public and partners, and inform frontline teams, those who lived experience public and partners.
Thanks, Jude. Actually, just before I ask any question, we were discussing a draft of this paper, and I said to Jude to underline something she said. So I found some of these diagrams quite hard to follow, and Jude's response was, "You might find it hard to follow, but this is what we have to work with." So it's really, I think it's really complicated. So yeah, any questions? Shona McFarlane, I've got then Hussein. Shona, do you want to come in? I think Shona's got a hand up, but might have some technical issues. So I'll go to Hussein first, and then Shona, if you want to come in thereafter. Hussein?
It's not a question, but and I apologize, I should have done this earlier, but because it was mentioned, can I just make a declaration of interest? And it is on my register of interests. I'm a member of the Diverse Experiences Advisory Panel, and we are a stakeholder to and mentioned in the Scottish Government's mental health and wellbeing strategy. Just want to put that on record.
Thanks for that. I've got a hand from Duke. Sorry.
Can we just clarify? You say that you're planning on staying in the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was a transparency statement.
Yeah, sorry, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, so I've got a hand from June Brown, I think. Yes. And Shona still. Shona, you're able to come in with us? Shona, if you're having difficulty coming in, right, do you want to put your question in the chat? And while you're doing that, while you're doing the typing, if I can come to June first.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Judith, for the presentation. Judith, my question's in relation to the, particularly the pathway work, and I know that there's been loads of work being done around looking at this. My question is, how much outward looking have we done in relation to what other boards, other health and social care partnerships are doing round about pathway development, and what kind of learning can we take from them back into the whole of Grampian is my question. Thank you.
Thank you, June. I'm one of several members of the Mental Health and Disabilities National Network, and I'm the lead for Grampian for the National Health Service Benchmarking Network. And through those, there's ability to share good practice, and certainly the core mental health standards and the mental health and wellbeing strategy launches involve regular meetings with colleagues across Scotland in just that joint sharing of information. We can see where we're benchmarking against other areas through the benchmarking network, but we can also take the practice or share the practice for what we're doing here.
Okay, and then Shona has put in the chat question: where have the carers been accommodated and their opinions taken on board?
That'll be through the lived experience.
So we had a lived experience subgroup that was made up of lots of individuals from lots of different roles. So we had engagement officers, we also had patient advocacy involved there as well, a lot of third sector organisations too. One of the things that we wanted to do was really tap into existing research that had been done. One, because I think there had been a good bit of engagement done with those with lived experience and mental health lived experience quite recently, and we wanted to make sure that we could utilise what had already been captured. We were able to do that in one small part with the Cornell Hospital's inpatient core for research. And the other part that we did was a survey, although that was specifically aimed at the individuals with lived experience, mental health lived experience. We didn't specifically look at carers, but that didn't exclude their involvement in sharing their experiences as carers, although we didn't specifically mention carers in our communication.
Okay. Mark, can someone check with Shona in the chat whether she was able to hear that answer? Otherwise, maybe we could put it in the chat. I'll bring in, while that's being done, I'll bring in Mark.
Yeah, thanks. I think that involvement of those with lived experience is really crucial, and it's right that that's central in shaping the final summary report, which are due out in June. What's the ongoing participation and engagement with those with lived experience after the report's produced? I mean, presumably there will still be opportunities to shape, to influence policy and the way forward.
Absolutely. So the adult mental health steering group remains in place, as does the subgroup, which is our lived experience subgroup. So all those individuals are also part of the steering group as well in some way. We will be sharing, actually, it'll be sooner than June this week, a communication with individuals with lived experience that wanted to continue being part of this review, alongside the report as well that we've produced. And they'll continue to be involved at the early stages of developing what future workshops will be in regard to the 40 actions within the review itself. So there will be an opportunity for them to take part in that as well.
Great, thank you. And those with lived experience, does that include families and those around individuals?
Absolutely, and we'll take the lead from the individuals with lived experience that are engaging with us. So that's something that we want to extend out to them. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't include them. Certainly, we've got opinions and reflections on this area themselves. So yeah.
Great, thank you very much.
And it's maybe just something we'll take forward as well as part of our communications to be clearer about who can be involved in this, so it doesn't. With particular phrases look like we're excluding anyone. That's certainly not the case.
Yeah, I mean, you're providing care to the individual, but that's about sharing responsibility with so many, and particularly those who are closest and who are doing their best to provide support. So yeah, it's good to see. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Is someone else wanted to come back in? Yeah, yes. I'm not sure. I don't think Shona can hear. Would it be possible to go to respond in the chat to make sure that we're responding? Great, thank you. Okay. Yeah, actually, it probably, if we can hang on for a sec so that we can respond to Shona in the chat, she wants to come back in. Because what I was.
Sure, that's a just
Oh,
can't answer, she's there.
right, okay. In which case, fine. Any more comments?
There's a second question in here from Shona that I'm trying to read. What about discharges home and the patient does not have to share information with family they're returning for? I think that's really important. So there's a different bit of work that's going on across Grampian and including Orkney and Shetland, and looking at discharge planning and improvement, learning from some of the mental welfare commission reports and some adverse events and poor experiences that we've had in Grampian, but good experiences as well. We're actually planning a shared learning event at the start of June for clinical colleagues across Grampian and operational colleagues attend that as well. So it's a very well attended session led by our medical director, and we do have a family that's going to share their experience. It's turned out well in the end, but it was a bit rocky during the period of time. So that's a separate bit of work that we do have to have a look at that across Grampian as well. We've had support from the Optimising Patient Flow programme from NHS Grampian to help us with that project. Thank you for that.
Good. Okay.
Chair, just one final question.
Yeah, fine.
Your timeframes are tight. How realistically are you get a report by September?
We did toy whether we commissioned short life working groups, but I think the experience of short life working groups, this would take an indefinite period of time, and as this demonstrates for those pressures, we've got standards that we're going to need to focus on time. So as a steering group, we're looking at how much preparatory work we can do in setting up the task and finish groups to try and do the theming of the 40 actions that's come through, make sure that we've got events structured in a table that we're going to actually meet our objectives and aims and make them as clear as possible, because it's felt that the biggest risk to this project actual conclusion is those standards and specifications, because operationally we must on the service delivery.
A lot of actions there.
Indeed, we do. There's a lot of commonalities in them, hence we're able to relatively easily aim them.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything further from anybody? No. Okay. In which case, the recommendations are on page 246. Can we agree?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. And thanks for that. Really complex area, rather you than me. That then brings us on to item 8.1, which is the Get Active Northfield Hub update report, which is Grace Milne. Okay.
Please call chairs again. Thank you. So thank you. Before you is the report on the progress on the community room and what we call now our health and wellbeing hub at the Northfield site at Sport Aberdeen. Today I've been joined with Angie Craig from Sport Aberdeen, who has been well and truly my project teammate for this Test of Change and its progress to date. We were approached by Sport Aberdeen to offer opportunities for us to co-locate the site services at the newly refurbished site in Northfield. The report details some of the project aims and what we wanted to test. Our target demographics need and suggested areas to concentrate on were largely based on our population needs assessment for the North locality and local area. The project decided to concentrate on prevention, rehabilitation and wellbeing services and initiatives. There's been at least 10 service areas that have utilised the space, including some piloting within that area. Some of the key to note is obviously the pulmonary rehab project and its achievements over the time with the inclusion of services up at the Northfield site and our promotion of self-referral services across there. Again, the same with our the PEEP programme, which was the healthy eating behaviours. It was a good project to showcase within that site where we had 11 families included in that, and it was a good programme. They also then went on to continue services on in Sport Aberdeen as well, so making sure we're showcasing benefits from each being in co-located sites. Within the report, you can see the service updates and the benefits from all of the service areas that we've had within the area. And we were able to actually step up this project about June last year, when we actually went in collaboration with the rest of our areas across Aberdeen, like our vaccination hub, the Torry hub, the Grey Hope hub, and Tillydrone. So now we're beginning to kind of form that health and wellbeing hubs across Aberdeen. The next stages for us would be to then look at that, make sure that our branding and kind of that recognition across the city, where they can see that health and wellbeing hubs is all kind of based on need for within the area that they require, but that kind of branding so they recognise it's health and social care partnership. So yes, if there was any questions, we're happy to kind of update on any of the progress on the report. And from today's recommendations, you'll see that we've moved into kind of business as usual, and we'll be kind of continuing that review process as we go on annually.
Thank you, Grace. Martin.
Thank you. It's wonderful to see all of the really positive diversity of activities, promoting healthy lifestyles, and so that's just great. Could I ask if there is linking in with the, first of all, with the Northfield Academy improvement journey, because I think that there are a lot of shared outcomes that we're looking at around diversionary activities, the emphasis on health and well-being as not just an educational, but as a whole person issue. So the improvement journey, and secondly, does this relate to, hopefully, yes, to the family support model, which is a very strong and very important direction that we're going in with education and children's services, because it really relates so well to the same outcomes.
I think that's one of the benefits of a project like this, that it does relate and coincide with a lot of the initiatives and approaches that we've got going on. And that's it. That one of probably our biggest tasks has been trying to make all that connections of everything else that's going on across the city, like the vaccination hubs and bits and pieces like that. I take on board your work with Northfield Academy. We did explore some avenues to that last year, but we weren't able to take any of them forward. However, we've re-established that connections again to do that, to see if there's anything we can do within that community space. Don't know specifically from Sport Aberdeen with connections at Northfield Academy.
Yeah, I think Sport Aberdeen have got some really strong connections within there, and the support that they're giving to the children and young people through our active school coordinators and our assistants and those working in the area, either on kind of general health and wellbeing for the children and young people there, or really quite specialist projects. And I think the team at Get Active at Northfield as well are kind of linked into some of that diversionary activity that's maybe happening throughout the week, particularly sort of evenings and weekends and things. And it's also something that we're really keen to be part of. Those are young people in that community, and how can we help to bring them in and positively engage in a facility and the sports facilities that are involved.
Good, thank you. It would be really good to see that partnership working, deepening, and expanding and becoming more structured and really integrating in a more formal way. Because what we're looking at is not just, well, what we're looking at is the health and well-being of the community, of everyone, and the hub and the academy and the feeder primary schools are all key institutions that are all there working to support children, the families, the whole community. So it's obviously it's obviously to the advantage overall to the greater good if there is that much stronger partnership work. So good. It's all good. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I forgot to make a transparency statement. in that I'm an observer of the Board of Sport Aberdeen, which I probably should have said at the beginning, but slipped my mind. Anyway, sorry.
Yes, Lynn Morrison, and I've been involved in the project with Grace and others. And I guess it's just to add, I think as we develop this model across the city, I think that need for that local embedding with local partners is a key part of this health and wellbeing hub approach. So I think Northfield is quite a bit of a vanguard of testing that, and we've seen that evolving now both in Redbridge and the vaccination centre, and also in Victoria and other areas as well. So I think one of the approaches we took last year was to do a more in-depth review with key partners, including Northfield, to really get that deeper understanding of what's already in the community and what the community are needing. So while there'll be a bit of, I guess, general offer that we're aiming to have across all the different hubs, I think that very locality specific and neighbourhood specific approach is absolutely fundamental to this. So I guess just to give that assurance that's the direction of travel is to really work with those partners in that more in depth.
Thank you. I think that quite rightly, there's quite a strong focus on Northfield as a key locality for community planning to work together as for place-based integrated work. So yeah, and I'm sure that it could be a model of good practice. If we're able to develop the relationships and elsewhere. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Grace and the team for all the work that you've done here. It's doing power of good. I just want to ask a question regarding creating an inclusive space, and I'm just wondering if you have any evidence, anecdotally or otherwise, of anybody with additional support needs or any kind of disabled users of the facility, if you've had any feedback from them. And the reason I mention that is I know from personal experience and elsewhere that certainly there are some groups of disabled people that find mainstream sports venues quite challenging if there isn't that additional support there to enable them to make the best use of the facilities. I'm just wondering if there's any feedback from any such users.
There was actually specifically, we had the session that Lynn was referring to. We were speaking to our learning disability services, and they were saying that they used to use the facility before, but with the change of the facility, they did changes to the pool to make sure that there was hoist and accessibility from changing area into the swimming pool as well. So there's been some obvious changes made, but there's been, I'll let you come in with the other rankings there.
No, Grace is absolutely right, and I think because there was some fairly extensive refurbishment of the venue, which and the reopening coincided with the start of this project, we were able to kind of really look at the accessibility around that specific leisure facility. So there was, we looked at the kind of best practice from industry, but we also worked with kind of local organisations, that third sector, and individuals themselves who could all help us with the design of the facility, and before we opened, having users in just to see how the facility felt. We're always open to continuing that conversation though, and getting feedback all the time. We did sort of opt into going through a sort of UK Active sort of accreditation standard, I guess. It's called Tackling Inequalities in Leisure, and we did that just at the turn of the year, and sort of the facility was sort of banded at the highest sort of excellent level. So we're doing something right, but with that, I think there's always recommendations and learning. So it's good that we can then use that as sort of next steps of what we take forward. That's how we improve the facility. But that's not just necessarily in terms of the building and how it's laid out, but the services that are on offer, the staff training, everything that goes to hopefully including and creating as an inclusive venue as we can.
Thank you. You've answered my second question there as well, because it was going to be around the staff training, because often the design of the building is often for depending on who it is, of course. For some people, design is exceptionally important. For others, it's more the service, which is absolutely critical, and having that staff awareness of the support that's needed. So I'm glad that that's also been incorporated into it. It would be at some point in the future, don't add to your workload, but it would be interesting just to get any feedback from users as this takes on. and hopefully goes from strength to strength. That would be really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Because there is a critical shortage of accessible sporting venues in the city at the moment as is. So if hubs such as this, obviously for sport, but the health aspects as well that Martin has referred to, this could be a model for other areas going forward.
Okay. Any more comments or questions? See any? I'll make a comment then, which is that I see, Grace, that one of the learnings you've got is that self-referral options give you as good as, and in a lot of cases, better than uptake than referred. It kind of links back to, I think it's Hussein's comment on technology-enabled care, where if you've got to go to the trouble of, I mean, it's not go to the trouble of making an appointment for something or getting referred for something, it feels like a bit of hassle. Whereas if you can just drop in and walk in, it's much easier. Like it's much easier to get. It strikes me that you get prevention, early intervention happening rather more than if you put barriers to access in place. That was it. That was.
Right, and you're right, because I think for some of the things that we've done through Northfield is that, like the PEEP programme, there was referred families and self-referred families, and we noticed that self-referred families were the ones that came in abundance and things like that. So it's just kind of recognising what the fit is best for people, and the likes of the pulmonary rehab. Obviously, we do have referred services from NHS teams to do pulmonary rehab, but then that continued support and making sure that they're keeping up with that, the rehabilitation. You've got the likes of the Sport Aberdeen classes and the RGU student-led classes. So it's kind of that options are then available. I think a lot of part of what we need to do further with this project is making sure that people are aware of what is available here. So yeah, so that's one of our next steps, is making sure that we've got that branding in place so kind of people recognise what they're able to come forward for.
Grand. Any more student comments? Can't see any. In which case, are we able to approve the recommendations from page 339 of the back?
Agreed.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you.
That brings us to, well, we've done 9.1, which is the exempt appendix on the supplementary work plan, which only leaves us with 6.6, which was Morse, which we said we would take the public paper and the exempt appendix together. So that if in effect concludes the.
Take public paper and just deal with that. I only have one very quick question on the exempt paper. I just think given the benefits it brings, and if we can have as much transparency.
Yeah, no, we can certainly do that. So no, that's fine. So we're still technically in public at the minute. So right, and Michelle, over to you. And sorry that you had to get up and go out. Get out.
Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Grant, for anyone who doesn't know me, and I'm one of the Transformation Programme Managers for the Strategy and Transformation team. So the report in front of you asks you to note the evaluation and to also approve the renewal of the contract for the Morse application for a period of 3 years. And as a bit of a refresher, Morse is an application that's used within our child and adult community nursing teams, and it allows them to access and update an electronic patient record without the need for a constant Wi-Fi connection, which of course is important for these services who don't necessarily work in a traditional clinic setting. So regarding the evaluation in Appendix B, we had a IJB topic specific seminar a couple of weeks ago where we presented the outcome of the evaluation. And also heard from the services which use Morse and the impact that it's had on them. And I suppose as a result, I don't intend to necessarily labour some of these points as much as I might have otherwise. However, what we can see from the output is services continue to respond well to the use of Morse. There's evidence of it embedding within these services, and that looking at some of the processes which are undertaken, that significant time can be released. And this is obviously especially important when our services are operating with significant levels of vacancies. So the use of Morse can release that capacity back into the service and let them communicate and operate more efficiently. The previous contract with Cambric, who supply Morse, is due to end in October this year. And this paper, supported by the input from the evaluation, asked for IJB to consider renewing this contract for a further 3-year period. The costs outlined in the exempt portion of the paper have been negotiated with the supplier, and the licence cost of the product will remain at 2024 prices for the 3-year period. The second cost that's outlined is for e-health support of the product, and that's been in place throughout the life cycle of the product to date. Our family nurse partnership colleagues have been looking on enviously to how we've used Morse in the city, and they are also wishing to utilise the product. So since the enterprise-wide licence that we have in place was procured through NHS Grampian, there's no impingement on that licence agreement, and therefore we can allow the service to utilise Morse. And it also brings in an additional, albeit small, revenue stream to the partnership as well. So the FNP service provides a sort of specialised, I'm sure they would introduce it differently, but they provide a specialist health visiting programme to young mothers throughout Grampian. And they discharge their clients back to the health visiting service when the child reaches the age of 2. So as you can imagine, in some of these cases, these are quite vulnerable patients and clients that they're dealing with. And sharing information across Grampian is going to be hugely beneficial to them. So I think that kind of rounds up the main points that I was looking to make, and I'm obviously open to any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions?
Thank you very much. And thank you, Michelle, for your forbearance. I appreciate it. I just want to take you to the very start of the report. And
Sorry, just quite correctly reminded me that we're still public at the minute. Yeah, okay, sorry.
But thank you, Grant. I just want to take you to the very start of the public report and the evaluation results. And I just really want to understand, if there is a bottleneck, and if there is, how we resolve it, and if it isn't, then how do we resolve that? Because it says here that 90% of health visiting staff would recommend this to a colleague, which is fantastic for a system which is up and running. That is a ringing endorsement. But only 41% of community nurses would do so. And later in the report, and I'm not entirely clear on what it's trying to say here, it appears to say that there are some technical limitations in the system due to the amount of data on caseload. And I guess my question is that, we want all our staff to be happy with this and to spread word of mouth and so on. Is that something that's resolvable within the current technological limitations that we're under? Or is that something that the vendor would seek to address? Or is that just a function of where we're operating?
I think there's a couple of elements. I think the 41% initially needs to be seen in context in the previous report. So that has come up significantly. I think our previous report was sitting around 29% within our community nursing teams. And I think that was largely due to when we had scheduled in that evaluation. They'd been up and running for about 9 months, so everything was very new to them. So that percentage has increased over the piece, which is hugely positive. The elements that I think the community nursing service are still having some teething problems, issues with, is around about how they schedule their patients, how they schedule their interventions. And that is largely due to the size of their teams, because how Morse operates, they download 13 months worth of their entire caseload onto their device. And where they are members of more than one team, that could mean 500, 600 patients' records being downloaded to your device, which obviously has a huge bearing on the memory and the time it takes to sync that. We have looked at options in how to reduce that load on the device. The supplier has suggested that we look at how Highland are dealing with it. they operate just in a slightly different manner to how Grampian do, and they schedule their patients slightly differently. So there are absolutely options available. As a quick win, what we've done is looked at where individuals are members of more than one team and where that's appropriate, because quite often it may be the case that they are just working with a team for a week and then they go back to what would be the resident team, if you like. But that team membership remains, and therefore that overload on the device continues. So I hope that makes sense.
It does, thank you. That's great, thank you.
Okay, I've got Phil. Oh, yeah. Do you want to come in?
I'm not coming on that point.
In which case, can I bring in Phil Mackey first, because he's had his hand up for a bit.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Congratulations on actually including a series of environmental impact comments within the paper overall. I think it's important that we don't lose sight, as I've said previously at IJB meetings, of these issues. I think there is a kind of a view very often that the move to digital is universally a good thing. And I think even just within the very simple analysis you've done there, you've shown that there are some positives, but there's also some potential for negatives. And I think we should be more mindful of this type of approach, albeit it's not a full end-to-end, full use analysis. We are actually doing something which might be not helping with our net carbon zero work, but at the same time, we are reducing our paper use, which has got a positive environmental impact. So congratulations. I'd like to see more of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
The predictable comment I'm going to come out with it's about the linking with GP practice notes. I don't want to take away from the excellent system that Morse is, but are we anywhere close to being it?
So they're
share that.
They're looking at it nationally. There's been discussions between Sedgdom and Cambric. I think the drive from the boards at the moment is to get New Vision up and running. And therefore Cambric haven't seen the drive from the boards coming forth to have that conversation. So the initial steps are in place, but we need that drive across Scotland to get that interface up and running. What we are doing and what is currently going through information governance at the moment is an interface with Sky Store. So that means anyone, including GPs obviously, that have access to Sky Store can get access to particular reports, not everything, because obviously it'd be data overload. But that would potentially alleviate some of that in the short term until that wider interface was in place.
Definitely progress.
Yeah.
Glad to get it's as a national line.
Go back up, Karen's question. Cambric doing this for every health board or IJB, or is it? I had the impression that they were doing it for, I don't know, half a dozen.
So they're actively, so Morse as a product is actively used in 8 health boards for various services. So some use it for health visiting, some use it for HPs, some use it for inpatients. They're in talks with a further 4 health boards. So it may open up further, I suppose, yet to be defined. What Cambric tend to do with regards to their interfaces and how they link with the systems is they develop it and then you pick and choose your suite of what you would want to use within your area and what would be useful to use within your area. So the ones that we focused on so far have been around track care and Sky Store very soon. And we may look at the likes of Fair Warning, which is an information governance system as well. So we direct that prioritisation in the interfaces that we would want to have.
And is my memory playing tricks, or was it the case that one of in the early stages, it couldn't talk to the system we had, couldn't talk to, I think it was hospital records?
Which is track care, yeah.
But they've then tweaked the system, if that's the right technical term, so that we can access that as well.
So it's all around about the interface between the two, and what we're doing, and at the very end stages of it is getting that information governance approval to do so. So it's live in other health boards, but we just have to go through that governance process for due diligence.
Yeah,
Fraser, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it's just to support what Michelle's saying there. I'm just looking at section 417 in the report, and a key aspiration for us across health and social care is to try and rationalise the number of digital systems that we have, because that's what helps to enable integration of records and just build that more complete sense of the residents that we're ultimately serving. So we're looking at developing some governance structures with our colleagues, particularly at NHSG and Aberdeen City Council, just to make sure that when we're looking at the development of digital opportunities, that we're cross-checking against existing capability that either Aberdeen City Council has or NHS Grampian has. Because if we can rationalise the number of systems we have, it enables that better integration across all of our services, and also should lead to better efficiencies as well in terms of cost. So it's just to make you aware of that work going on in the background, and I suspect that there'll be a heavier emphasis on that type of approach in future versions of our strategic plan.
Thanks.
I could just come in with an example actually on tying Fraser's comment and also Phil's comment. So once the interface with TrackCare is live and in place for our users, one of the benefits for our community nurses is that they will be able to actually see if a patient is an inpatient, whereas at the moment they quite often turn up at somebody's house, find that there's nobody at home, and thereafter have to backtrack to find where that patient is or that person is, and they've ended up in hospital overnight, for example. So having access to that information before they make that visit means that there's less travel involved, also makes the process more efficient, but equally works towards our carbon zero output as well. So all ties together eventually.
Okay, sorry, bringing this. Jennifer gave her hand up a minute ago. Jennifer, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you. It was really in support of what Michelle has said already, and just to really reiterate that Aberdeen City is probably in an enviable position if you were to ask any of the nursing staff across Shire and Moray. And at the moment we are trying to look and see that we have one digital solution with regards to community nursing records, and that work remains ongoing with those other partnerships. And I guess it's just about things like part of the reason that we want to promote that is around better access to notes and more timely access to notes. And actually, it's just to highlight, the benefits that brings to Aberdeen City already, and that we're hoping that we can also spread across to Shire and Moray. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Mark. Thanks, Jeff. A couple of questions. One, when does this become business as usual?
It's pretty much there.
Yeah.
I think this is more around contract renewal rather than implementation, beyond the Family Nurse Partnership, which is a Grampian-wide service rather than specifically partnership.
And are there alternatives?
There are, when Jenny was sort of mentioning there about that Grampian-wide piece, those alternatives have been scoped as part of that. So you're looking at TrackCare being the main alternative, which is what's used within inpatient records. The limiting factor on that is that there is no intention for it to be made available offline. So it always needs a Wi-Fi connection, dongled in the device and then that taken out and about in order for it to be able to function as a remote electronic patient record. And that obviously comes with its own limitations. If you don't have Wi-Fi, you don't have access to those records. The cost side of things is roughly on a par when we've looked at it on the Grampian-wide basis, largely because of that Wi-Fi and data that would be required as part of that.
Comfortable for most high-end?
From an interface perspective, yes, but the data going back goes to SkyStore rather than to Snap. It's natively.
Everybody happy? Any more questions? In which case, can we agree the recommendation? Oh, sorry,
Are we?
Oh, sorry.
The paper before we go. How are we doing this?
Right. If we can, thank you for reminding me. If we can go private now, and then you can ask your question and then we can agree the recommendations in the public paper. So